Bienvenidos nuevamente a la sesión plenaria de clausura del día lunes de Expo Foro Virtual de Turismo Global. Un gusto que hoy nos estén acompañando nuevamente. Hemos tenido una audiencia masiva durante toda la jornada, lo que nos tiene totalmente felices, porque la verdad que el desarrollo de este evento ha superado las expectativas y lo que nosotros soñábamos. Bienvenida Ana María, bienvenido Oscar, bienvenido Paul. Gracias por acompañarnos y por ser quienes nos van a dar la última sesión del día, y es un lujo, la verdad, que contar con su participación, porque admiramos profundamente a Oscar desde hace años, y lo mismo con Paul, y además que sean presentados por una amiga como Ana María Vizcasillas. Por favor, chicos, si son tan amables, me pasan entonces la presentación. ¿Cómo gestionar destinos de manera exitosa? Esta es la presentación que hoy nos van a presentar Paul y Oscar. Ana María Vizcasillas, amiga, asesora consultora de nuestra asociación, al igual que Oscar Cerezales, que hoy también nos está acompañando. Es consultora internacional. Ana María, presidenta y fundadora y principal visionaria de la empresa Business Tourist Services, especialista en consultoría estratégica para organismos de destinos, empresas en la industria de reuniones y turismo, siguiendo altos estándares mundiales. Como miembro de la Junta de Directores de la Professional Conference Management Association, PCMA, Ana apoya la visión global de esta prestigiosa organización en la profesionalización y sensibilización en la industria de reuniones y eventos de negocios. Es socia y actual vicepresidenta de COCAL, además de miembro de Business Recovery Task Force Apex COVID-19 del Events Industry Council. Fiel creyente en la labor esencial de los DMOs, burós, colabora como asesora consultiva de la Asociación Latinoamericana de Burós, nuestra asociación. Y es un gusto contar con su acompañamiento, y en el acto de apertura le hicimos un reconocimiento y un agradecimiento. Ana lidera exitosos proyectos como Destinations Next y Organization Next para Latinoamérica y el Caribe, y colabora con la empresa MGA Next Factor como consultora ejecutiva. Es Past President and CEO de Bureaus and Convenciones de Puerto Rico y ahora Discover Puerto Rico. Ana María es uno de los pocos profesionales en Latinoamérica y el Caribe que cuenta con la prestigiosa certificación CDMA, única en el mundo para profesionales del mercado y gerencia de destinos. En 2007 fue reconocida con el IMEX Academy Award para las Américas, Salón de la Fama, y recientemente galardonada con el Industry Achievement Award del World Meeting Forum. Es un gusto que nos acompañe Ana María, quien va a presentar a nuestros speakers de lujo. Muchas gracias. Gracias por acompañarnos.
Muchísimas gracias, Silvana, y a los amigos que nos escuchan, muchísimas gracias por su perseverancia y por su deseo de compartir intercambio de conocimiento. En honor a los amigos que nos acompañan hoy, si hay algo que los define, es colaboración. Y si me permiten, por unos minutitos voy a hacer un poquito de mezcla de español e inglés. Paul and Oscar, if there is something that allows us to describe both of you, is your genuine collaboration. So if you allow me, I will do a very quick introduction of your fabulous trajectory, and then we get started with what people want to hear, right? Comenzamos un poco a compartirles sobre nuestro gran amigo y colaborador Oscar Cerezales, nacido en Barcelona, hoy nos acompaña desde Singapur, donde ya es mañana martes. Más de 25 años en la industria, creando experiencias, y al momento trabaja con el grupo MCI como vicepresidente ejecutivo global. Como ustedes conocen, el grupo MCI está dedicado a empoderar a las corporaciones, asociaciones y a los gobiernos a activar experiencias híbridas cara a cara y digitales a través de sus empleados y todos sus asociados, sus clientes y sus socios, activando toda una cadena de valor. MCI cuenta con 61 oficinas en sobre 31 países y organizan al año sobre 7,000 eventos y reuniones. Oscar también contribuye mucho a nuestra industria como director del Advisory Board de PCMA, también está en el board de la asociación SACEOS, ha sido fundador de varios capítulos de MPI alrededor del mundo, fiel creyente en Latinoamérica, fiel creyente en el intercambio de conocimiento, muchas publicaciones, y como decimos al principio, si hay algo que lo define, es su genuina colaboración. Oscar, muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros.
Gracias.
En
a vosotros.
Y nuestra tardecita. Paul, we met, our dear friend of our industry as well, is the partner and president of FMGY Next Factor. Y yo aquí hablando inglés y lo que tengo que hacer es decir esto en español. Sorry, Paul, I'm switching to Spanish. Socio presidente de FMGY Next Factor, empresa que estableció desde el 2015. También Paul es reconocido a nivel internacional como el Managing Director de la gran herramienta Destination Next en asociación con Destinations International. Uno de los socios fundadores de la empresa Intervistas Consulting en 1997 y por 20 años colaboró con la empresa y desde el 2015 ahora sigue colaborando junto con ellos como consultor ejecutivo. Exitoso desarrollador de planes estratégicos y de planes maestros de turismo a nivel internacional con organizaciones de marketing de destinos, gobiernos, asociaciones sin fines de lucro, hoteles, aeropuertos alrededor del mundo. Ha completado muchísimos reviews de diferentes organizaciones y también de startup, lo que se conoce como planes de startup, de comienzo. Facilitado sobre 300 retiros de planificación y ha llevado a muchas comunidades a través de su consultoría a lograr mucho más envolvimiento de las comunidades en el día a día de manejo y de gerencia de destinos. Por los pasados 6 años, por lo que más lo conocemos, es que ha liderado el team que desarrolla y lleva Destination Next, una iniciativa muy importante de Destinations International que nuestros amigos de Skift nombraron como uno de los 100 mejores desarrollos en la industria de las reuniones y en la industria del turismo a nivel internacional en el 2015. Más allá de que consideramos que es un ciudadano del mundo, we think you are a world citizen, just like Oscar. He has helped a lot, ha ayudado a muchísimos destinos creando estos mapas de ruta para la industria de los DMOs o organizaciones de destino. Se han completado sobre 200 estudios a nivel internacional con la herramienta Destination Next y hoy también nos va a compartir de Organization Next. Pero hoy vinimos a escuchar cómo gestionar con éxito en los destinos. Dice el título después de la pandemia, nosotros entendemos que es durante la pandemia. My friends, we're switching to English now for the rest of the session. The title says how to successfully manage destination post-pandemic. I just said how to successfully manage during, because we're not over yet, and this is the moment to leave the new opportunities we have. So without further ado, I leave Oscar Cerezales to share his views on successful management of destinations. Then we're gonna go with Paul, and then we'll do Q&A. Oscar, thank you so much, and the mic is yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
well?
sir.
Yeah, okay, just me. Can you see my screen? No,
not yet.
Okay, no, what's happening now? Wait, give me a second.
Viene por ahí la pantalla, por ahí viene.
¿Sí? ¿La ves ahora?
Sí, señor.
Okay.
Sí, señor.
Okay.
We're here.
So, just quick, give me 1 minute in Spanish. Hola, buenos días a todos. Bueno, buenos días para mí. Como sabéis, he viajado en el tiempo y hoy aquí es martes en Singapur. Como sabéis, muchos amigos soy de Barcelona y hace años que vivo aquí en Singapur, así me estoy quedando de delgadito a la primera que pueda volar para Latinoamérica que me voy. Os voy a hacer la presentación en inglés porque con Paul decidimos pues un poco para entender bien el uno al otro lo vamos a hacer en inglés, pero no dudéis en contactarme en LinkedIn, en Twitter durante esta sesión y si hay alguna cosa que no se haya entendido pues la haré en español y obviamente la presentación, quien la necesite, se la pasaré. I'm switching to English now. So, the title had to successfully manage destinations. So in my day-to-day destinations, we work, sometimes as a partner, sometimes as a client, sometimes I'm helping as consultant, sometimes as a friend. So I'm going to give you like a point of view which is completely, I think, complementary, but at the same time different from Paul. So we agree on giving you different angles, which I feel is going to give you a whole picture of what we think. Okay. So number one, let me just give me a second. Something is okay. Let me hear. Let's start with the context. Let's start with the pre-pandemic. Okay. What was written in stone? What was crystal clear before everything happened? So number one, the measure of success of what was a successful destination was kind of clear. I'm not saying that was right, but it was kind of clear. Whether you were in a certain ranking, whether you were selling a number of rooms, whether you have some economic impact. So the value, the input and the output, what was agreed between us as an industry. Now, I think it was wrong, but I leave that for Paul, right? The second element written in the stone was the ecosystem. It was clear. It was kind of clear who were the players, like the Convention Bureau, DMO, the Convention Center, the PCO, the DMC, the hotel, the tech company. Everyone knew who was doing what were the rules, and obviously how everyone was making money. And that was clear. Fees and commissions and these and that, all was kind of clear. The third thing what was clear, it was everything was based on face-to-face, right? Personal interaction. And that was kind of working, right? And I say, and I want to be very precise, it was kind of working, but there were a lot of things that weren't working really well. So that was written in stone, right? Now, what happened? The pandemic, right? And that was a game changer. So to me, there was a black swan. And a black swan, if you Google a black swan, is an event that, number one, has widespread, yet massive impact, massive ramifications. It's a massive hit for an industry. That's number one. And number two, is completely unpredictable. And again, if you Google it, you will see a lot of black swan kind of events. World War II, the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s, that was all unpredictable. And again, with massive impact in any ecosystem, right? So what happened to us? People tend to think, oh, the pandemic came, things are changing. Well, let me tell you something. A black swan event breaks what is already broken, okay? There were certain things that are written in stone that, at least to me, they were already broken. It's just that we were just meeting and laughing, you know, and going for social events and we know our rankings and demonstrating this and sharing some data, but there was a few things we were working. Now, we can spend here the whole day, but I just have 20 minutes. Let me tell you the three key things that were broken, in my opinion. Number one, the economic and social impact. So number one, there is no global, there is no regional agreement and when it comes to methodology for economic impact. So everyone has its own methodology, its own way of doing things. And I know there are exceptions, but globally as an industry, we didn't have the, I would say, the brain, the attitude, right? The wishful thinking of sitting down and realize that we, as in other industries, we need a global agreed economic impact kind of KPI methodology. Secondly, the social impact. The transformation, the social transformation impact. Everyone was talking about rooms and millions of dollars in the economy because of the business events, but no one was talking about the social impact of business events. So everything which is not purely economic. And guess what? We tend to think that for politicians, for government, the economic impact is the only thing that counts. But for citizens, the social impact is as powerful as the economic impact because they get lost with numbers. With 1 million, 10 million, 100 million of impact. When you start sharing the stories, things change. The second thing was broken was the asymmetry of the ecosystem. And what do we mean by asymmetry? The asymmetry is that the ecosystem was, and it is today, and this is, my friends, believe me, it's one of the big problems. They're obsessed, and paranoid with the international association market. The main rankings are international association kind of rankings. The destination strategies on international associations. The methodologies, the marketing on international associations. Everything is international associations. Nothing wrong. Great example, great segment, huge economic impact, amazing. But probably we're talking about 10% of the whole economic and social impact for a destination. So associations are great because they're quite predictable, right? Then we know about the rotation, we know about the impact. But destinations, they were stuck just only with one segment, and there are hundreds of segments. The third one was the funding model. If you think about destinations, and if you think about the economic and non-economic impact, they're a destination, call it DMO, call it CVB, don't care. If you think about the impact that these people, they're bringing, so they're the bridge of, remember that business events is not just tourism, it's economic development as well. So if you think about what you see as an output, as a result, they're not well funded, right? A good DMO convention center, they need to have the right resources. 99 of the convention centers, and probably North American, Paul can share more on that, they're the exceptions, but in the rest of the world, and specifically in Latin America, they are not funded. Some of them, they're doing the best, but it's a joke. It's a joke. If you're a government, it's a joke, okay? The lack of funding in some of them. Now, you got the pandemic. Now what? I would say, first of all, be customer-centric. If you need to get obsessed, be obsessed with your customer. So if you're a destination, what's going to happen with your customer? So number one, they have new ways of working, with their associations, with their corporations, the way they're measuring the KPIs of their workers, the remote kind of work, everything is changing. Think about learning and development and how this is going to apply with events. There are new metrics, return on experience, return on investment, return on engagement. Everything is changing. So start thinking about, oh, what is the role of a destination? How you are sharing your value proposition? Where the new metrics, because things are changing. When a corporate, for example, or an association, they move to digital, they forget the size, the number of delegates is important, but it's more important than return on engagement as an example. Now think about the experiences. The experiences are no longer just offline, but let me tell you something. They're not only online. They are what we call O2O2O, which are online, offline, online. So your member, if you're an association, your user or your talent, if you're a corporate, they go online, they go offline, they go back online. So again, think about the role of a destination. Obviously, whether you are a corporation or an association, you are facing a lot, what we call the low touch economics. And this is, my friends, this is really the thing. This is the cherry on the cake, okay? This is the spicy chili. The economy low touch changes everything. So an association today, they might go virtual, no problem. And instead of 1,000 delegates, they're going to have 5,000 delegates. But no one is telling you that the profit, because the cost of organizing a virtual event is obviously much less than a physical event. But no one tells you the revenue, it could be 1/5 or 1/3 or 1/4, doesn't matter. So point is, associations are rethinking the model. But also corporates. The low touch economy means that if your user, your member, your wherever, they're using you in a different way. They're buying from you via online now, and things are changing. Now, think about our corporates again for a moment. There's a new ways of marketing. There's a new, I would say, way to use the omni-channel. There's a new marketing spend. If you check, when you talk to corporate and say, we have no budget, not true. There's no single research out there, with some exceptions, that will tell you that the marketing spend will decrease in the next years. On the contrary, all marketing expense will increase, and a lot of research shows that. Point is, they're going to use the money differently. Instead of being just sponsors of a traditional event, traditional associations, they're going to change it. They're going to create their own events, in partnering with associations, obviously, but they're going to create trade conferences, B2Bs, B2C. They're going to do it differently. And of course, they're going to spend a lot of money in digital. They're going to spend a lot of mobile, etc. So think about, where's your value proposition there? Now think about associations, as I said. Because associations, normally they have, with a few exceptions again, North American associations are exceptions, some European associations are exceptions. Normally associations, they don't have enough reserves. On top, what they do is they rely a lot on the annual conference. The annual conference is giving the 50, the 60, the 70% of the annual revenues. This is not happening now. And most of them don't have insurance. So bottom line, associations, they do not have a diversified revenue stream. Now things are changing. They're finding the new model. And of course, they're moving to virtual. But things are going to change. But again, if you're a destination, think about that. If you're focusing on associations or in corporates, how do you value where the world is changing? So with that said, I'm going through the so what destinations are doing. Now you might think, Oscar, we want examples. So Paul is going to give you some examples, but I want you to think in the light of we're doing, I would say, better. And let's define better first. To me, better is a destination that is, when it comes to their strategy, of course, they are performing, they're growing, they're adaptable, and they're sustainable. right? It's a combination of everything. It's not just growing for the sake of growing. So what they have is the right customer mix, as an example, and they have the right economic and non-economic impact to the destination. So they might end up having a lot of virtual, but a lot of hybrid, and a lot of face-to-face in the near future. But also that means that they have a widespread kind of a diversified kind of impact. That means they have a lot of congresses, a lot of corporate events, a lot of exhibitions, and a lot of B2B, and a lot of B2C, and a lot of locals, and a lot of regionals, and a lot of globals, and a lot of small, medium, large, and extra large. A bit of everything. So what they're doing is they're putting eggs in different baskets. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about Melbourne. I'm thinking about Copenhagen. I'm thinking about Singapore. I'm thinking about Sydney. In certain areas, I would say Dubai. So I can keep on Cape Town. I can think in a lot of destinations, they're really good in this or that aspect. But globally, I would say that no one out there is doing extremely well. There's no one destination to say, oh my God, just copy everything they're doing. But it's coming, right? And if you want a few examples, I would like to Paul, I have a few examples, specific examples of destinations. Now, what they can do, if you're a destination, you need to get paranoid with the business model. If there is something that will change your life, it's changing, adapting, fine-tuning your business model. And that will require a full workshop or a full day. That will require a longer presentation. A business model normally is the way that any organization captures value and delivers value. The business model, it has to change. If you had a shitty business, and let me repeat, a shitty, and I know that I cannot use these words, if you had a shitty business model before the pandemic as a destination, you're going to have a shitty business model after the destination, believe me. So business modeling is strategic, is smart, the smart way of allocating your resources, and you need to think in 9, in 10 different variables. For today, I want you to focus on just 6, and I want to be very, very precise on 6 of them only, okay? Example number 1, your cost structure. The cost structure needs to change. And you might say, Oscar, I'm a destination. I cannot change my cost structure, my DMO, for example. Well, I get that, but you cannot source differently. So some of these destinations that I share with you, they're really, really smart. What they're doing is in the past, they were outsourcing low value kind of activities. So I'm outsourcing, I don't know, someone to type something, someone to register, I don't know who, someone even doing some advertisement. Now, great destinations, they're outsourcing high value stuff. For example, content creation. For example, finding new kind of ambassadors, new ways of new methodologies, etc. Then we move to new revenues, right? There's a lot of those cool, smart new destinations. What you can see is that the conventional DMO, they're now under economic development agencies. And you might say, oh, that's the end of the DMO CV. No, absolutely not. You're getting more funding. So am I saying that's the only way to do it? No, it's not the only way to do it. And of course, one size does not fit all, but think about how others are doing it. Then metrics. Your previous metrics, your current metrics, believe me, do not work. And the problem here is we're preaching to the converts, right? When I'm talking to Anna, with Paul, with Silvana, with myself, I think that we all know that. We all know that we cannot measure a destination just because of number of rooms it's sold. Or if you are just brought 20 international congresses, that's great. But we need to have, as I said, agreed methodology and metrics when it comes to economic impact and non-economic impact. That's the only way that governments will hear you. Otherwise, governments, they won't pay attention. Then the customer mix, as I said, the addressable market now is huge. The addressable market, because of digital and hybrid, has multiplied by probably 20, 25 times the size of your previous market. So if you're a destination, these are extremely good news. If your addressable market before the pandemic was, let's say, I don't know, 10 or 100 million US, represents X number of events. Now it's 25 million. It's super, it's great. It's but how to get there. Then, as I said, sustainable growth. If you're thinking about growth, It's not just about, I want to bring more international events or more corporates, more associations. It's, I need more recurrent events. I need in my destination an X percentage of events that are recurrent. So the cost of sales are going down and is better, and have a wider impact, as I said, a right mix, right? A right mix of small, medium, big size, of corporate associations, trade conferences, exhibitions, and also local, regional, global. And finally, the value proposition. Let me ask you something. In a world where everything is growing exponentially in digital, where more and more associations are going digital, where more and more corporates are going digital, where more and more trade conferences are going digital, what's your value? What are the value you're bringing there? Because the traditional destination is just a bridge, it's just a channel, it's just show me the destination, thank you. Now I don't need a destination because I don't need a convention center and I don't need hotels. I go with a completely different value chain. It does not mean that you can become the bridge and the channel for this new value chain. And remember that now most of everything is online, but very soon it's going to be hybrid. So where's your value proposition? Well, let me tell you something again. There are only a very, very few destinations that are doing well in positioning themselves as hybrid destinations or even digital destinations. Now, let me finish with something. What do I believe is the opportunity? Okay. Number one,
Oscar,
we tend to think, yes.
Oscar, discúlpame un segundo y perdóname porque estás maravilloso, pero tenemos algunas personas escribiendo que te están escuchando en inglés y tenemos traducción y no saben cómo llegar al inglés. Amigos, si van a la pantalla del foro donde escogen la sala A, entiendo se llama la sala Ecuador, subes y bajas el programa, te dice una sección en inglés. Si le das al botón de entrar a esa sesión, vas a estar escuchando a Oscar y a Paul en inglés. Espero que eso les ayude y qué rico que nos están escribiendo y están acompañándonos. I'm so sorry, Oscar.
No worries.
Pero te quieren, es que te está quedando bueno ese inglés y te quieren oír en inglés.
Pero ¿me han oído o no me han oído, pero en inglés solo?
No, pasa que hay traducción y el que no ha llegado a escucharte hay dos salas con dos idiomas.
Es la misma sala que tiene idioma inglés e idioma español.
Okay.
Yo te estoy escuchando en español, por ejemplo. Yo te estoy escuchando en español,
exacto.
pero también te estás escuchando muy bien en inglés. Así que, bueno, hay algunos que no encontraron la sala en español, perdón.
Bueno, no hay problema. Para eso estamos los latinos, para ser creativos y cambiar.
Estamos aprendiendo a surfear la plataforma, porque esto hay que ir viendo de qué botoncito tocas para ver dónde escuchás en inglés y dónde en español.
Bueno, a mí me gusta ver esto como un café entre amigos por la mañana, más que una presentación.
Maravilloso.
O sea, todo está permitido. Well, so I continue in English or Spanish? English.
English, mi amigo. English, mi amigo.
Yes.
Okay. So we believe that we're an industry, but in reality, our value is that we're an intersection of industries. And when you hear the word intersection of industry, the magic happens, right? If you think about the industry of advertising, the industry of communication, the industry of education, we are the intersection of all of that and other industries. So if you think about, we have been for years, for decades, isolated. We're talking about ourselves. So it's this, I always say the same, right? The same people speaking about the same topics within the same associations, on the same spaces, right? And what we need to do as an intersection is to start connecting with those adjacent industries where they have new content. And by the way, they can reach differently also governments. So I believe there's a strategic moving here. The second is about synergies, right? Sadly, this is, I think there's a lot of, it comes with our culture, right? It's this Latin culture. Probably we brought you the Spanish, we brought you the wrong thing down to Latin America. But the reality is that, look, if you think about Latin America as an example, right? Mexico is doing things, Argentina is doing things, and Colombia are doing things, and Brazil is doing things. But at the end of the day, there is no Latin America kind of approach. And all these countries are, even if you think about Brazil and Mexico, are huge. They're not that big when it comes to business events. So we need to start thinking about Latin America as a region. If we are smart enough to put all Latin America in a macro region, That's going to be like the region where everyone will pay attention. Today, and this is a great initiative which Silvana is running and the association, we need not only more of those. That's great. But at the end of the day we need a cohesive, a coordinated approach when it comes to the region. And finally, I want to finish with the hardware and the software. For years, we have been selling the hardware, right? I'm a destination, I have amazing convention centers and amazing hotels and an amazing value chain and suppliers and PCOs and DMCs and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's great, but what's missing is the software. And by the software is how you as a destination, you sell this value chain, you sell this value proposition. What about your storytelling or your new business model? What about everything which is not the hardware? So if you go through any advertisement, if you see the content in social media from any destination, you will see that 99% of the times, I know that Paul has examples to show you how to do it differently, but 99% of the times, it's all about me, my destination, and we are great, and I got these highways, and the nightlife, and the museums, but it's, okay, we already know that, and by the way, you are very similar to another 500 destinations, so tell me about the software, tell me about the storytelling, tell me about the content, tell me about the ideas, tell me about the brains. So with that, I do believe that what was broken is still broken. Now, it can change, absolutely. You have to change it, absolutely. And now what we'd like to do is to offer you on how to change it. So we have some interesting facts that Paul is going to share with you, and interesting also examples of how destinations are dealing with this new norm. So all yours, Paul.
Super. Well, thank you, Oscar. I want to begin by saying that I agree 100% with everything that you said. Great presentation. Let me just take control here.
Yes, Paul, while you are putting up the screen, a nuestros amigos nuevamente recordarles, pueden ver la sesión en vivo en inglés y también pueden hacer uso de la traducción al español que lo encuentran dentro de la plataforma, y como explicó Silvana, es cuestión de seguir navegando un poquito y con mucho gusto les ayudamos. Tenemos la dicha de contar con Paul y con Oscar para hacerles preguntas. En confianza, háganos sus preguntas a través de la plataforma, que con mucho gusto las contestamos. I just asked the audience once again to make sure that they could hear Paul, either you in English or someone with not your voice, but in Spanish, and to feel free to ask questions. So the audience and the mic is all yours. Thank you for being here.
Well, hopefully it's a better voice than mine in Spanish, but thank you for the invitation to be here and to talk to you about this project. This Organization Next is a project that we started and announced in March of this year, just as the pandemic was starting to significantly worsen. We teamed with Adam Sachs and Tourism Economics to put this program together. And really what we're looking at here is to help identify major strategies that various convention bureaus and destination marketing organizations should be focusing on. And I think right now, when we look at what we're all having to deal with, we're doing the destination recovery and resiliency strategy for Canada right now. Everyone pretty much agrees we're all having to deal with and to go through 3 phases. Most of us have been through the response phase and dealing with waves and surges and spikes, but many of us now are in the recovery phase and hoping to get into a resilience phase in the coming year. Organization X, this project is really geared towards strategies for the next 6 to 18 months in the short term to address all of the issues that we're dealing with. Next year, many of you are familiar with our Destination Next project. We will be launching a new future study in the first part of next year to look at what is the new normal going to look like? What should you be aspiring to as organizations. Now, the one thing that I think everyone can agree today is that we are all dealing with two new realities. The first one is all of us are dealing with reduced resources. We've got less money. We've had to lay off people. We're dealing with less human resources, workforce issues. But at the same time, many of us are having an increasing number of things that our stakeholders, our industry leaders, community leaders, elected officials are asking us to do in our communities. And when I look at successful organizations, and this is in the public sector, the private sector, the one common sort of characteristic that I always see is that successful organizations in bad times and in good times always have a clear list of priorities. And this is really what we're trying to do here, is to help figure out for any destination, for any organization, what are the specific priority things that need to be done. Now, there's been a lot of engagement to put this project together. We set up an advisory panel of over 30 people. These were chief executive officers, chief marketing officers. We had some young up and coming convention and visitor bureau professionals. We put together a list of specific strategies with their guidance. We did a first survey in May, report in June. We just finished a second survey last week, and we're going to be publishing our second report and update in the next 2 weeks. We're planning a third survey in late October. We've done interviews with over 150 people. We've had over 20 focus groups and have been doing recovery workshops in a number of cities. We believe that for strategic recovery plans, you've really got to be focused on three key areas. The first one is community building, making sure that the public and private sectors are aligned, that the tourism industry, the economic development industry, and community organizations are all working together and are on the same page to deal with the pandemic, the health issues, and all of the reopening of our economy. The second area is on the sales and marketing side. Reassessing your source markets, reassessing your opportunities for the short and medium terms especially, and adapting your sales and marketing strategies to focus on those potential realistic market segments. And finally, the third area is looking at the sustainability of your organizations. And here, a lot of the discussion is really about the roles that you should be playing, and as Oscar talked about, the KPIs that we're going to be looking at in the future. Now, the first survey that we did, we had 350 destination organizations from 20 countries. Last week, our second survey, we had another 174 responses from 18 countries. So this has really got extensive feedback from organizations around the world. We had, in the second survey, 12 countries represented from Latin America. So thank you to those on the call who participated in the survey. I know Ana Maria and her team were making a lot of calls, so muchas gracias, my dear. The first question that we asked was, what was going to be the financial impact on your organization's budget in the next fiscal year? And what we're seeing here is pretty significant reductions. 59% of the organizations were expecting budget decreases of over 25%. So this was overall results. When we look at Latin America results, the numbers were slightly worse. For this group, we're looking at 63% of organizations were looking at budget decreases of more than 25%. So what I want to do now is just walk you through some of the key strategies, and I'll give you a couple of examples of things, and this is actually right in our workshops that we've been doing that have really impressed us in work. So the first one is on community building. This is the list of strategies, and we had probably about 20 strategies in each. These were the strategies that received scores of 4 and higher out of 5. What was interesting is the highest ranked strategies were in community building. This is in May, and in July is where many of you are telling us we've really got to be focused on. This is really, really critical at this stage. When we look at those strategies, there's really 3 major themes that we're looking at. The first one is a recognition that it's really important right now to align, as I mentioned earlier, tourism, community, and economic development to improve destination performance and quality of life. Many organizations right now are finding it absolutely critical to expand their advocacy efforts locally. We're seeing significant opposition from local residents, from local governments to reopen our economies, our hospitality industries, and we're having to spend a significant amount of energy and resources to work with them and to convince them that it's safe and that it's a smart strategy to reopen our hospitality sector. And then finally, a recognition that many of us right now are thinking short term. We're dealing with crises every day, but that it's still important to think about the longer term and to make sure that actions we take today do not significantly reduce the potential for us to come out of this potentially with a better organization. When we look at the specific responses in Latin America, these were very consistent with what we've seen in the global survey. And I apologize, this is a lot of detail here, but really the ones that are at the top of the list here, a lot of importance being placed on reopening our economies and really focusing on developing the health and safety protocols that we need. And then a recognition, as I just mentioned, about the need for more advocacy to promote the importance of the tourism industry and the important work that our industry is actually doing. There's lots of examples of different destinations. St. John, New Brunswick in Canada has done a phenomenal video campaign called Discover the Winds to sort of elevate the community spirit. Some of these I'm not going to be showing you videos today just in the time I have, but you can get these on YouTube. But Discover the Winds is a great video. Fort Worth is a community that we've been very impressed with in terms of the work that they've done in promoting their local businesses. Every community, many of the sectors the hardest hit, restaurants, retail, some of the arts and cultural facilities and attractions have really struggled, having been shut down. Many organizations, Fort Worth has developed a phenomenal program with web pages to promote their local sectors. Their restaurant page in Fort Worth right now is getting over 30,000 views per day. So very impressive results. Others are doing significant visitors mean business campaign. This is social media with videos and messaging targeted towards local government officials. On the customer engagement side, what was interesting here is scores not as high, but a long list of things to be done in terms of sales and marketing. And the major takeaways here, a recognition by everyone that we really need to, in the short term, look at new source markets for business. This is going to be largely centered around, regional drive markets and primarily leisure travelers. Obviously, group and business events markets are going to be slower to recover. Lots of discussion and critical roles that we all can play in communicating health and safety protocols, recognition that we have to be aggressively promoting outdoor experiences. That's clearly what visitors are really looking for right now in terms of dining experiences, as well as attractions and limited events that are available. And finally, we've also had all sorts of riots and protests about civil rights. And I think there is a growing awareness and sensitivity by many visitors about the values that a community has. This is a potential opportunity to differentiate yourself from others in terms of your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this has been a very interesting area to develop. Latin America, again, very similar responses to what we've seen in other places. What was interesting here is the highest score was, and I was very impressed with this, a commitment and recognition that your decisions here in terms of sales and marketing strategies should be driven by objective data and science, recognizing that you've got to make some changes as well on the market focus, and a recognition of local campaigns. The other area that's really critical, and I think Oscar spoke to this so well, is really to look at how you're delivering experiences in the future. And this is the technology platforms for hybrid meetings is something that we're all going to have to be doing a lot of work on in the future. Many organizations are starting to really focus on road trips. It's been interesting, some organizations which fight normally very aggressively for visitors, cities like Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco have actually teamed together to promote road trip itineraries. So this has been one of the positives coming out of this. I think a lot more collaboration in some markets. Other organizations are really pivoting hard and promoting outdoor experiences, I mentioned earlier. The final area is organization sustainability. This is a shorter list of strategies, but these are going to be growing in importance, I think, as we're sort of going out of recovery into the resilience phase. There are some significant things here we have to deal with. And really, when we look at the takeaways, the first thing, and probably the most important, is a recognition with the limited, reduced resources that many of us are facing. It's really critical right now to reassess the purpose of the organization, the roles that you play, and the programs that you're delivering. And once that's been determined, is to consider appropriate KPIs, key performance indicators that should be used for the organization moving forward. I loved what Oscar was saying there with some of the changing metrics. The second area is, I think we're seeing a need and a desire to do improved collaboration and alignment between different organizations in many cities. Many cities, we've got multiple organizations involved in economic development and promotion. There could be opportunities to pool resources more effectively and to, in some instances, potentially merge and integrate operations. And finally, this is not going to be a clear-cut, smooth recovery. There's going to be, all sorts of bumps along the way. So recovery scenarios and planning is really going to be important here. Again, Latin America was very similar in terms of the key strategies. A really important importance placed on the roles, responsibilities, organization structure, and also looking at new funding sources. So again, pretty consistent with the general surveys. I just want to close on the roles of the organization. These are the Latin American, the 12 countries, the roles that were considered to be the most important. And probably the biggest takeaway here is these were all on a scale of 1 to 5. You have identified a long list of roles, important roles that your bureaus should be playing. But at the top of the list, really, it's marketing, but partnership development, and destination and product development were the highest, and being an objective destination information resource. So a long list of things to do, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, this is really important to focus on the ones that are the most significant potential benefit and return for your industry locally. So I think on that, this is some examples on the alignment side. We're seeing coalitions, we're seeing partnerships, mergers to provide greater alignment in various communities. So I think on that basis, I'll stop there and let the group ask questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Paul and Oscar. And now I'm gonna do what I believe is a favorite of Paul, poetic justice, and I'm gonna go between Spanish and English because we have fabulous questions for both of you. So Silvana, I'm gonna get started, and I ask for allow the translators to excuse me for what I'm about to do. First question. The audience was taken in between the measurements that both of you spoke that are so important to change the mindset that exists. And the black swan, y ese cisne negro, Oscar, que tienes a todo el mundo rebuscado aquí en las redes. First question, for both of you, if you had the opportunity to get to know, you are talking about new models of measurement. Let me just rephrase it. I'm sorry, I'm translating here to make it easier for both of you. How do we get to the hoteliers to understand in many of our communities in Latin America that the new model of measurement, the success of a destination is not counting nor beds, nor rooms, nor occupancy rates? How do we reach to these hoteliers, in your opinions? Because in many of our communities in Latin America, these hoteliers have the ears of the mayor, the governor, and the national assemblies. Any thoughts on that?
You wanna go ahead, Paul? Or?
Yeah, I think this is something that has not just been the reality since since this pandemic. I think what we've been saying for 5 years now with Destination Next is, we because of peer-to-peer review, because of social media, we've got to deliver on the promises that we're making to our visitors. So, the old focus on just room night generation is a very short-sighted strategy. And I think, as we've moved into more destination management organizations, we've had to look at broader metrics. We're starting to see now organizations that have completely changed their KPIs to much broader metrics. 2 years ago, the Hawaii Tourism Authority, this is an organization that has a budget of $79 million a year, a critical partner for the hotels. The two most important KPIs today in Hawaii are visitor satisfaction scores and resident sentiment. So, and they have the blessing of the hotel sector because the hoteliers recognize that they have to have the support of residents, and they have to continue to improve and evolve their destination. So, hopefully other hoteliers in other cities will follow the same path.
Paul, I'm going to say it in Spanish first. Le vamos a pedir a Paul el listado de las cadenas hoteleras que hay en Hawái para nosotros acercarnos a esos hoteleros y convencer a los nuestros de Latinoamérica. We were going to look at the brands of hotels that are in Hawaii so that we can reach those hoteliers and convince our communities. Sentimiento de una comunidad y satisfacción de un visitante. Es que es una medida maravillosa porque la realidad, como bien explicado Oscar, tenemos que ser customer concentric, tenemos que estar pendientes de los clientes. Oscar, your view on how to convince hoteliers.
Spanish or English?
English, so that we help Paul.
English, okay. So, look, what I think is let's agree let's agree to disagree. Let me add something on top of what Paul said, right? So while this is true for some destinations, a number of destinations, this is changing. The reality, whether we like it or not, is 99% of destinations, I mean, they're facing this issue. And let's be clear, this issue is here to stay. Why? Because if you think about the investments that hotels have been doing in destinations, together with, the major or wherever the agency was trying to bring, I mean, of course, they have a lot of power. So the problem here is number one, let's start with the measurement, okay? If you think engineers, for example, they got ISOs or service companies, okay? We don't have ISOs as a certificate. I mean, we have a couple, but we don't have standard agreements similar to ISOs when it comes to this measurement methodology. So either, number one, we sit down as, take the top 5, the 3 or the 10 regional associations, let's say with Latin America, you sit down and you let's agree on one, or not gonna happen. Because no one cares if, with all my respect, if Peru or Barcelona or my neighborhood in front of me have a methodology. We need to have an agreed methodology with enough critical size, right? The second option is, okay, not gonna happen because all the industry associations are gonna sit down. Okay, then my recommendation is take 3, 4, 5, 10 great destinations in Latin America, you sit down and you agree on one methodology. Do not reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of methodologies out there. Just pick one that works, go for it. Now let me talk about hotels. This issue is here to stay, right? Because of all the investments. Where I've seen changes, and I don't know the whole story on with Paul, but I've seen other destinations and a big change is that hotels, they have, I wouldn't say, generally speaking, with a few exceptions or with a lot of exceptions, hotels have no clue about business events. They don't know about the business model. They know about the value chain, but they don't know how everyone makes money. The PCO, the DMC, the CV, everyone, how does it work? They just see occupation, rates, revenue per available room, this kind of thing. So with that is, some destinations are sitting with hotels and they're spending time to go through visioning sessions. Why? Because rooms are simply the output. If the hotels understand, but they need to understand, there's a problem. You cannot fight just with hotels. They need to understand what's the business model. And this is the output. My recommendation is you need to sell them that the output is going to be better. They're going to sell even more rooms if they allow you to change the business model, to adapt your business model. So once they understand the formula, this is the output, it's going to be even better for you. Because I guess for Paul's example, Paul is not saying that hotels is just forgotten. It's like we're not looking at hotels. Maybe hotels are doing better than before. And that's the point. You need to show them how. They need to understand how this formula works of these eggs in different baskets. And it's not just international association events, because if you are only focused in international association events, that's super long-term for a hotel that is thinking in next week. And that's a fundamental gap.
Gracias, gracias, Oscar. Thank you so much, Oscar. They were asking about measurements, and there's also, we might be running out of time, but if the audience and Silvana, si nos lo permite, tenemos 3 preguntitas más y concluimos, si está bien con la audiencia y contigo, Silvana. Bueno, yo sigo por aquí. One of the biggest challenges we have in our region in Latin America is the funding models. They're screwed. Sorry, they're screwed. They don't work. So one of the questions here has to do with what you both have seen around the world. If you could share quickly some thoughts on funding models for Latin America. Paul, you spoke about sustainability of the organization. Tenemos muchos DMOs, tenemos muchos buros que se nos están desapareciendo porque no hay modelos de financiamiento. ¿Pensamientos de ustedes? Paul, if you're okay with the speed of time, Oscar, you can answer in Spanish and Paul answers in English on the funding models quickly.
Ok, primero, hay demasiados convention bureaus y DMOs. Nos guste o nos guste, no necesitamos 500. Posiblemente que algunos desaparezcan, es lo que Darwin diría, bueno, es la evolución de las especies. Esto es lo primero. Lo segundo, una de las soluciones que estamos viendo en el mundo entero, y estoy pensando en los que está haciendo realmente bien, es como decía antes, ciertos convention bureaus DMO se están yendo internamente formando parte de las agencias de desarrollo económico. El tercer modelo que se está viendo también es que en ciertos destinos la iniciativa privada ha tomado cartas en el asunto, como decimos en España. Es decir, no esperamos al gobierno, se han sentado los 4, los 5, los 6 jugadores y simplemente han puesto dinero. Estas son las 3 grandes áreas que yo veo a nivel internacional. Paul.
Perfecto. Paul, I wrote it for you. Private sector, you understood Oscar, right? Because you understand better Spanish than you speak, ¿verdad?
Well, yeah, I think the funding issue could potentially be one of the silver linings that comes out of this crisis. I don't think there's ever been a better opportunity to get governments to potentially address the funding challenges of different jurisdictions, to put in more public funding, or to create policies where hotel occupancy taxes and other revenue sources can be generated. And I think one of the most important messages right now that we need to be telling to politicians is that the hospitality industry was the industry that was hit the hardest. It's been the area that had the most unemployment, that's had the greatest economic impact. And if we're going to rebuild our economies, it has to start with the hospitality industry, with tourism. So if governments are going to make meaningful changes, this is really an area that works. And I was in 2001, after 9/11, when there was a major downturn in tourism for the next few years. That's exactly what we saw, was as travel, international travel, air travel dropped off, we saw significant public money being put into the system to try to stimulate the market at that time.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Quite a bit of discussions in the different chats. We're all here. We have a question. I'm gonna do the quick translation, Paul, because I believe it has merits for both of you to answer. The question starts, Oscar, you speak about, hablaste del cisne negro que rompe lo que ya está roto. Y entonces, si esto ya está roto y la industria es mecánica, entonces llega el 20 y nos dice que esto no funciona. Puedes elaborar sobre eso. Déjame asegurarme que te la hice bien. Aquí dice, si todo antes del cisne negro, estaba ya roto, ¿por qué seguíamos haciendo todas las cosas como siempre? ¿Somos una industria tan mecánica? ¿Y ahora ya nos cayó el 20 de que la cosa cambió? ¿Qué piensas?
Sí, primero, creo que he dicho, igual me he equivocado, no creo que todo estuviera roto. Creo que algunas cosas estaban rotas. ¿Y qué es lo que pasa? El ser humano, nosotros los seres humanos funcionamos por sinergia, ¿verdad? Nosotros por las leyes de la termodinámica y las leyes naturales funcionamos con la ley del mínimo esfuerzo. Por lo tanto, nosotros tendemos a ¿qué? Como decía antes, a sentarnos con las mismas comunidades, en las mismas asociaciones del sector, hablando de los mismos temas, socializando, pero al final hay muy poca acción. Fijaros donde hay mucha acción. En los países anglosajones hay mucha acción. Fijaros en Inglaterra, fijaros en Australia, y no digo que sea buena, pero hay mucha acción en nuestro sector, en Estados Unidos, en Canadá. ¿Por qué? Es un tema cultural. Nosotros al final, lo que quiero decir es que hablamos mucho y hacemos poco. Y llega un momento que es, a ver, señores y señoras, nos guste o no, COVID es una bendición. Y entenderme, no estoy hablando de si alguien ha tenido la mala suerte de tener a alguien en la familia con COVID, pero quiero decir, es una bendición para el sector, porque en este sector hace mucha falta romper bastantes huevos para hacer una nueva tortilla, ¿de acuerdo? Y creo que hay que dejar ya ciertas cosas que estaban rotas. Y, por ejemplo, ¿está todo roto? No. ¿Qué es lo que está roto? Pues hombre, a lo mejor lo que decía antes, los contenidos deben variar, los modelos de negocio deben variar, tiene que haber más acción y menos palabras. Entonces, ahora, en el 2020, con esto acabo, ¿qué va a haber en el 2021? Oigan, lo que tienen que hacer es, como decía, romper algunos huevos, hacer alguna cosa y no simplemente sentarse a escuchar a Paul, a Oscar y a Ana en un webinar, porque webinars ya hemos tenido muchos. Ahora es el momento de la acción y es el momento de que todas aquellas asociaciones, comunidades y personas que tenían algún tipo de fricción, que uno no se hablaba con el otro, que tú estás aquí, yo estoy allá, es el momento de sentarnos porque deberíamos ir por el bien común. Y esto es lo que está pasando en los países anglosajones. Yo he visto destinos que eran enemigos a muerte sentarse a hablar, es decir, ¿cómo mejoramos esto? ¿Cómo hacemos, cómo funcionamos esto a un nivel global y colaborativo y no individual? Paul?
Muchas gracias. Paul, the question was, he spoke about the black swan, and he said not everything is broken, but if it was broken, how come we kept on going? And there was a lot of talk and not enough action, and not enough people looking at the common ground for us to change our industry. So the question was, how is this with this black swan? If things were not really working, are we such a mechanic industry? And now, how do we look at the changes? I hope I translated correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think, as I said earlier, a lot of these discussions that we're having now were discussions before this crisis, discussions about the changing roles and responsibilities of organizations. Just because of all of the over tourism, we had all sorts of, significant challenges, sustainability issues. So, I mean, I think that's really, hopefully that we use this crisis. It's a bit of a cliche, but never waste a good crisis. And I think, this is the time that, I think for policy, at the national or at a state or a local level, is there should be opportunities to get some changes to finally address some of these issues.
No, I think it's fantastic what both of you have shared, the fact that we need a lot more common ground, and the silver lining, la gran oportunidad que tenemos en esta pandemia es, yo creo que las palabras de Oscar, de uno, dejar de hablar tanto y ponernos a trabajar. Señores, son los mismos huevos. Tenemos que hacer una tortilla nueva. Paul, we got a lot of eggs and we have screwed many times. So let's make a good omelette that can work for the various destinations. Gentlemen, we are very grateful for your time. We just have one more question, and I understand after that I will do the thank you, but then I will pass to Silvana. Silvana, sorry, quickly, I have one question here that I was sent to me. Now it's crumbling, so I make sure I have it. Sorry. Sí. Here we go. Oh, we have it. Paul.
Estaba en el chat.
Sí. There are the answers from LATAM that you shared with us on the global results, show relatively similar worries and importance perceived on topics like community building and customer engagement, but admittedly, few destinations have shown pioneering innovative long-term solutions. So what should be our priority, our focus to shift that reality and balance intention for doing? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think one of the first things that has to be addressed is the viability, the sustainability, the effectiveness of different organizations. So, looking at governance models, looking at, I think it really starts there. And making sure that you have an organization with leadership that brings all of these key people together to, to deal with many of the challenges we're having to deal with. So I think if you have that leadership and the support from key people in your community, this is industry and community leaders, that puts you in a stronger position to address funding issues, to address all sorts of other issues that organizations are going to face in the long term.
Oscar, would you like to comment on these pioneering innovations? Because you and I were chatting that, where is one destination that is outdoing others? Any thoughts on innovation?
Okay, long story short. ¿En inglés o en español ahora?
Yo creo que
en inglés.
Sí, zúmbele en inglés para ayudar a Paul. Sí, lo van a entender porque son maravillosos.
Español.
Okay. If you want to copy anyone, and in my opinion, there's no one out there you're going to copy. In my opinion, go and check what Singapore, Sydney, and Melbourne are doing. These guys are ahead of the game. The way they're funding new events, the way they collect the private and public partnership, the way they're developing content, storytelling, the way they're changing the business model, these guys, one of the reasons that I love living in this part of the world is that the people here are eager to learn. They learn and they apply of learnings. They listen to you and they're doing it, right? Now, there are other destinations doing great. I'm thinking about Orlando, San Luis, Washington. They're doing excellent things, but in very, very specific areas. Also, I'm thinking about New Zealand when it comes to the social transformation, non-economic impact, or Copenhagen, for example, in Denmark. They're doing great thinking about the future, new methodologies, etc. So I would say Orlando, San Luis, Washington, New Zealand, Copenhagen. But if you ask me for three, Singapore, Melbourne, Sydney. Singapore, Melbourne, Sydney, by far, in my opinion, they're the ones that if you take that slide that I shared with you with the 6 areas of business models, they're doing excellent.
Yeah. Agreed.
Great. Muchísimas gracias a ambos. Yo creo que estas preguntas del final han sido altamente refrescantes para nosotros. Nos toca hablar mucho menos y meterle muchas ganas al negocio en la región. Thank you for your wisdom, for your knowledge sharing, and for your humbleness in your appreciation of our unique cultures. Until next time, we bid you farewell. And we thank our audience and we pass it on to Silvana. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A big hug to both of you.
Thank you.
Bye, bye. Gracias a todos. Abrazo fuerte.
Chao. Gracias, Paul. Gracias, Oscar. La verdad que un gusto y un placer, como siempre, escucharlos. Oscar siempre polémico, siempre ahí pinchando para que activemos y me encanta porque han pasado los años y seguimos en esa atracción de intentar que todos los destinos activemos para poder, en este nuevo contexto, poder seguir transitando, ¿no? Hay muchos que probablemente desaparezcan y es un tema que me parece que puso en la mesa Oscar y siempre lo pone en la mesa. Y bueno, Paul, me encantó todos los números que nos brindaste vinculados a cómo vamos a evolucionar y hacia dónde tenemos que ir. Y bueno, a mí me quedaron muchas preguntas vinculadas a lo que tiene que ver con el triple impacto de los eventos, el impacto económico, social y medioambiental, y sobre todo hacia dónde vamos con lo social en este marco de nueva normalidad. Pero nos quedará para la próxima, porque seguramente algunos webinars vamos a seguir haciendo, otros seguimos actuando, comercializando, generando en las rondas de negocio las oportunidades para 2021 y 2022, porque nuestros destinos se tienen que vender, como planteó Oscar. Y estos destinos que son parte hoy en este foro, Expo Foro Virtual de Turismo Global, y que forman parte de las más de 1.200 citas de negocios que brindamos en el marco de este evento, como así también una expo virtual para poder mostrar su oferta turística por parte de nuestros destinos, o bien sus protocolos de sanitización para que pronto los visitantes puedan visitarles, también son herramientas para nuestros destinos. Y creo que desde nuestra asociación hemos sabido ver que un poco es este el contexto en el que hoy hoy, en este 2020, podemos llegar a mostrar nuestra oferta turística. Gracias, Oscar, muchas gracias, Ana María, gracias, Paul. Les cuento que han tenido audiencia récord, 921 personas han estado escuchando y mirando su conferencia. Tremendo,
900 people, Paul. So thank you for changing your agenda from Kansas City. Bravo.
Bravo, bravo. Aplausos virtuales, abrazos a la distancia. 1811 registrados tenemos hoy al primer día del desarrollo de esta Expo Foro Virtual. Realmente nos ha superado las expectativas, no nos lo imaginábamos y estamos muy felices porque de verdad que ha sido un gran esfuerzo, pero también el esfuerzo se ve recompensado en esto, en la participación, en la asistencia, en toda la industria reunida hoy en el acto de apertura con más de 30 líderes dando un discurso, como decía Oscar, un discurso de unidad, un discurso donde todos nos encontramos dando defensa de la cientos de miles de empleos que genera la industria del turismo y donde desde nuestras asociaciones es nuestra obligación moral y tenemos que salir a dar defensa de los empleos frente a los gobiernos. Bueno, agradecidos a todos, invitarlos ya al brindis virtual. Acaban de poner en el chat el ID y la contraseña para que por favor se sumen a la sesión de Zoom directa, la vamos a transmitir en la plataforma, pero si vamos a brindar tenemos que entre todos poder charlar, poder comunicarnos y no pasarnos la información a través de un chat de una plataforma virtual. Así que vamos por Zoom, vamos aunque sea vernos, brindar y charlar un poco entre nosotros los que se quieran quedar y sumarse a este fin de jornada de hoy con total y absoluto éxito. Gracias, Oscar, gracias, Paul, mil gracias, Ana María. Y los esperamos a los que no puedan mañana en otra edición de Expo Foro Virtual de Turismo Global. Muchas gracias.
Chao, buenas noches.
Buenas noches a todos.
Adiós.